Hi, this is Scott Garibay, and today I'm going to be talking about how love for the game can look like disdain. Okay? Alright, so what is prompting this video today is the Adam Cobell, Matt Colville discussion. It's an hour and 48 minute, essentially just a discussion back and forth between Adam Cobell and Matt Colville. So Adam Cobell created Dungeon World, which is one of the best D&D alternative tabletop role-playing games out there. It's a conversion of Apocalypse World, which is what is used to do power, which is the heart of PBTA, which is powered by the Apocalypse. There are no less than like 30 PBTA games. It's a staple on the indie side of tabletop role-playing games. Adam Cobell built Dungeon World with Sage Latour. It's really arguable that what they accomplished has really fueled indie tabletop role-playing games for 10 years, right? Maybe 5, 6, 7, 8, somewhere in there, right? But it's been a real catalyst for tabletop role-playing games. Dungeon World is really an important game, okay? Then Matt Colville is now famous essentially for having the largest tabletop role-playing game related Kickstarter in history, which is that is not miniatures based, which is Stronghold and streaming. It beat out John Wick's second edition of 7th Sea, which, boy, that game 7th Sea made $1 million and then was published and then just completely disappeared. I see nobody playing that game, nobody really talking about that game. It was $1 million Kickstarter that seemed to evaporate when it was delivered. It's a little strange to me. So, I mean, it was delivered, it was finished and all, but it just did not catch the zeitgeist that you would expect after it had, funded for $1 million. It's really crazy. But Stronghold and streaming, Matt Colville's Kickstarter was worth $2 million. Came out for $2 million. That's a lot of money. Okay. All right. So what these two talked about, it really, really brought me to this understanding of often what is a love for the game could very much look like disdain, right? So I think looking from the outside in, I think Adam Cobell's disposition to Dungeons & Dragons looks a lot like disdain to me, right? So a couple things he said in there is, one, he streams 4 games a week, right? And 2 of those games, he said he streams them because that's where you can get the views. And he's 100% right about this. I'm convinced that Dungeons & Dragons is larger today than every other single tabletop role-playing game combined. It has more momentum, more numbers, there's more passion behind it, people care about it more. It is, without a doubt, the big dog in tabletop role-playing games. It is the flagship, right? And, of course, it's the originator, right? And it says a lot that Mike Mearls has been able to revive it after the 4th edition thing and keep this thing moving, right? So here's the thing. Adam Cobell also talked about love the one you're with, right? So he said, if you can't be with the one you love, then love the one you're with. And I think what he meant by that is he's saying, hey, I love all these games a lot more than Dungeons & Dragons, but if I stream those games, I'm going to get 100 viewers. If I stream Dungeons & Dragons, I'm going to get 1,000 viewers, right? Now, here's the thing. I think if you look at a lot of Adam Cobell's comments, I think it looks like he's rebelling against Dungeons & Dragons and that he has a low opinion of Dungeons & Dragons, right? Matt Colville, not nearly to the extent as Adam Cobell, but same thing. Matt Colville, in this discussion, said, I am reinserting warfare and politics back into Dungeons & Dragons because it doesn't have it, right? And then he fully acknowledged that this is exactly what Gary Gygax created Dungeons & Dragons to escape, to get rid of warfare and politics the way we're in diplomacy and we're in all these war games that Dungeons & Dragons literally went beyond, right? So, it's almost like Matt Colville is going into the garbage and picking out something that Gary Gygax threw out, bringing it out, dusting it off, and placing it back on the table for Dungeons & Dragons, right? So, to me, the act of that with full knowledge, knowing that Gary Gygax moved the game beyond warfare and politics, to go and reinsert it into the game, it is somewhat, looks like disrespect. It looks like disdain, right? To me, all right? Now, here's the thing, and by the way, all this is incredibly nuanced, right? I love Dungeons & Dragons. I love tabletop role-playing games. I'm talking about the fringes, right? You know, like and the reason why is there's not a lot of people talking about this stuff. You can go to a million different YouTube channels and they'll tell you how to do a strong build for your barbarian, right? That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the edges of the hobby, right? And people who are on the edges of the hobby. Like, and I think Matt Colville is in some ways on the edge of the hobby. He's kind of found a weird space where, you know, if you got $2 million from a Kickstarter, maybe you're, you know, I think he was on the edge and now he's come into the mainstream. And we're going to see what happens with that Kickstarter. It's going to be interesting. But here's the thing. So both these guys, I think if you look at their comments, it looks like they have disdain for the game, right? But the way I'm starting to, so here's my new understanding of this, right? I think it's like a parent. Dungeons & Dragons serves like a parent. So you have one parent, and you have two children, okay? And the parent, you know, let's say the parent has a trade, shoemaking. I'm just going to try to make it simple here, right? And, you know, the parent has two children, and the two children grow up watching the parent make shoes, right? All leather, high quality, right? And then the two children grow up, and the parent's still there, and now, you know, the children are like 20, 25. The parent's like 40, 45, right? And the parent is still there making these quality leather shoes, right? And there's two children. One of the children says, "Parent, I love what you're doing, and I'm going to make the best leather shoes ever. And I'm even going to be right here in your shop." Parent and child choose, right? And that child stays there and makes leather shoes just the way the parent did, okay? The other child goes, "I've been watching you make these leather shoes for 20 years. I'm out of here," right? And it looks like disdain, right? The child leaves, right? But then the child leaves, you know, let's say the parent's shop is in New York. But then the child leaves and goes all the way across the country as far as they can physically get the child goes as far as they can physically get, you know, in America from the parent. And now they're in LA, right? And what they do is they create they start making shoes, but rather than the black and the brown shoes, the only two colors the parent ever made, right? And they made them incredibly well. This child makes them in all the colors of the rainbow, makes them out of molded plastic, makes them out of fabric, makes them out of silk, right? And just, you know, and actually just does, you know, makes shoes without laces, makes sandals, you know, like just, you know, opens the array of what can be made tenfold, 100-fold, right? Uses the same skills to do it, right? And then, I hate to say, and then every now, like once a month, maybe once every season, gives the parent a call and says, "Hey, I hope, you know, how's business," right? That's Adam Cobell. That's Matt Colville, right? I feel like they've gone as far as they can from Dungeons & Dragons in some ways, right? They rejected the leather shoes, right? When they left, it was ugly. You know, the parent was upset that they were leaving. You know what I mean? But the reality is often love can look like disdain, right? And so I think, and the reason why I'm talking about this now is, man, D&D is hitting a stride. 5th edition's been out. This thing is running smooth. It is an oiled engine, right? And it's exciting to see what's happening with all these different, you know, with these different games, right? And you know, what are these other games that are, you know, these other shoes, these colorful shoes I'm talking about, our Tiny Dungeon 2E, our Index Card RPG, our Blades in the Dark, Fate, right? All these beautiful, gorgeous shoes that are so different than Dungeons & Dragons, right? But in some ways, they're a rebellion against it, right? Dungeons & Dragons is a platform that, you know, great creators rocket off of. And sometimes that activity can look like disdain, right? So I think a lot of times if you listen to what Adam Cobell is saying, right, it really looks like he has disdain for the game. But the reality is he is the child of Dungeons & Dragons, right? And he is deep, deep in the weeds on and carrying the flag for some of the most absolute advanced tabletop role-playing game design aspects. John Harper from Blades in the Dark, same thing, right? Luke Crane, same thing. Matt Colville, same thing, right? Emily Care Boss, same thing. Anna Krieger, same thing, right? It's just, there's a lot here. And so I just, the entire point of this is I think a lot of times for Dungeons & Dragons and the new indie creators, the new tabletop role-playing game creators, what looks like disdain is actually love. Thank you.